To keep yourself updated, subscribe to IndigoLearn and click the bell icon.
Friends, welcome to this next topic called as departmental accounts. The important prerequisite that you require to have before you start understanding these departmental accounts is one and only thing called as common sense. If somebody doesn't want to exercise common sense, then departmental accounts concept cannot be understood. There are no formats, no formulae, nothing. The only thing is common sense. Now, this chapter is going to really sharpen our thinking capability, analytical capability, and the way you understand and process things. Now, let us take a simple example. Say we are three roommates in our, we are sharing room. So, we are three roommates and let's just call them ABC. Now, these three roommates are dividing the overall expenses of the room into three parts. Now, how should it happen? All the room's expenses divided by 3. Do you think that is the most ideal way to divide the room's expenses? Well, may not be. Say there is expenditure towards some health drinks. Maybe there is one person who is a fitness freak and that person A is going and purchasing whey protein and many other things. So, such things which are purchased by A, B and C will not feel good to share that expenditure. Similarly, maybe B is somebody who loves purchasing books and B purchases one book every week, and can B say that these expenses have to be divided among all three of us? May not be the most ideal thing. Those expenses are specifically for B. Then maybe B and C together watch movies. A doesn't go for movies, B and C watch movies, and the movie bill for the month, whatever it is something attributable only to B and C because only they are the ones who watch movies, A doesn't watch movies. So, the movie bills should be divided between B and C. So, this way if you think about it, there is no rocket science here. It's super logical, it's super common sense. Whatever is the expenditure attributable, whatever you can identify, you say, this is only for A, okay, put it only on A. This is only for B, put it only on B. It is for B and C, put it between B and C. Maybe there is room rent might be shared among A, B and C equally. Or maybe in that room, you find that A has occupied 50% of room, B and C occupied 25% of the room. Then you may say A will have to pay 50% of the rent, B and C have to pay 25% of the rent. So, like this, there has to be a common and a reasonable basis on which those expense distributions should happen. Now, let us slightly put this in the context of a company. In a company, say we are manufacturing clothes. In this clothes manufacturing company, maybe there is one department. Now, I am not calling these as people. So, I am calling these as departments. So, there is one department which purchases raw material called as, say, cotton. Cotton cloth is being purchased. And there is another department which actually processes this cotton into different patterns, colors. So, maybe the first department buys only plain cotton, the second department processes this cotton into different colors, and third department actually does stitching and so on. Now, if there are different departments, well, maybe ultimately there might be a department called as sales department which is selling those goods and getting money for the company. While sales department sells goods and gets money for the company, different people have role to play in the company, right? Different people have different roles to play in the company. If procurement doesn't happen, how will sales happen? If after procurement of cotton, if processing doesn't happen properly, then how will sales happen? After processing, if correctly tailoring doesn't happen, then how will sales happen? So, everything is important, everyone is important. See, whenever you think of departmental accounts, just imagine a human pyramid. In a human pyramid, there might be some people at the ground level, right? Generally, the stronger ones might be at the ground level. Then, or standing on the ground. On their shoulders, there might be a few other people standing, and so on. And finally, there might be somebody who is standing on the top of everyone. Now, you cannot say that in breaking that dahi handi, the credit can go only to the person who actually stuck that dahi handi, right? Why? While there are different people who are in the manual or human pyramid, there is one person hitting it, but for that one person to hit it, different people have to do different things properly. Now, in departmental accounts, what we try to do is, we try to understand each person's importance in the company or each department's importance in the company. So, we try to assess, hey, procurement department, how is your performance? We will find a way to put that together. How is your performance? Then, you talk about next department, say the department which is adding colors, which is doing dyeing. So, how is your performance? Then, there is another department which is doing tailoring. How is your performance? Sales department, how is your performance? So, like this, each department we are trying to analyze in isolation how the performance is. The process of analyzing the performance of each department is what we are going to learn as a part of this chapter. Are we clear about it? Right. Now, friends, broadly you need to understand something called as basis for allocating expenses. Now, imagine for 4 departments put together in the company, there is a huge office taken on rent. Now, how will the rent expenditure be shared to know the performance of each department? How will the rent expenditure be shared? Can I say simply by 4? Well, that may or may not be appropriate. You may say that, oh, rent expenditure should be shared on the basis of the area which is being occupied by each of these departments. If we have totally taken 10,000 square feet on rent, and if the first department is occupying 4,000 square feet, then obviously 4 out of 10 of the total rent expenditure should be borne by the first department, and so on. So, maybe you can arrive at the basis to be the floor space occupied. Similarly, electricity bill. In each department, what is the consumption happening? How many light points are there? How many fan points are there? Or something like that. Based on the number, based on the units consumed by that department, you should ideally charge the electricity cost to that individual department. So, like this, we are going to take different examples and understand how costs have to be divided, how benefits have to be attributed, and based on that, when you have cost and benefit, you can say, this is the profit or contribution generated by this department to the company. Like this, we will arrive at the performance measurement. And this performance measurement will help the management in evaluating, hey, should I really have procurement department in-house? Does it make sense? Or should I completely move it out of my company? Similarly, the dyeing or coloring department, should I have it in-house or should I move it out of company? Similarly, tailoring department. Like this, we can evaluate, are we doing well? Should it be in-house or should we move it out of the company? These kind of decisions can be taken with the help of departmental accounts, what we are going to understand. Now, in one shot, we will discuss regarding different expenses, how the allocation should happen. I already spoke to you. Rent. How do you divide rent? The most ideal or the logical way to divide rent would be the area occupied by each department. If there are 3 departments, you will check. Department A, what is the portion of the total rental premises that department A occupies? So, on the basis of area occupied, you can divide the rent expenditure. Does it make sense? Right. Then, say something like property taxes and other similar rates and taxes. This is again linked to the property that you have taken on rent. So, even such expenses can be divided on the basis of area occupied by individual departments. Then, let's talk about repairs to buildings, repairs to the premises what you have taken. Then, all the repairs, or even if there are some insurance expenses, repairs and insurance should be divided on the basis of the area occupied by individual departments. Are we clear about this? So, what did you understand till now? Rent, rates and taxes, repairs to the building and insurance on building. All these expenses can be divided on the basis of area occupied. Then, let's talk about lighting and power expenses, basically power consumption, whatever it is. On what basis do you divide? Total power bill is 1 lakh rupees per month. Then how do you divide that power bill? Based on power consumed by individual departments. Based on power consumed by individual departments. So, to understand that, maybe you will have something called as light points. So, when you say light points, that could be a proxy, that could be one way to understand what is the power consumed by different departments, or each department may have a separate meter. Based on that, you can assess what is the power consumed by that particular department. So, on that basis, you have to allocate the lighting and power expenses of the total company to each department. Next one is selling expenses. So when I say selling expenses, you are talking about selling commissions, then bad debts, freight relating to sales, and so on. So all the selling, incidental selling expenses, how should we divide? In the proportion of sales of each department. Well, let's talk about a company like Nestle. Nestle may have different products which it might be manufacturing, right? So one might be Maggi. Then, so let's just call it noodle segment. Then there might be another category which is into biscuits. Then there might be another category which is into baby products. So like this, whatever products Maggi is manufacturing, whatever Nestle is manufacturing and selling, so you may say, hey, selling expenses let us divide in proportion to the sales made by individual department. That can seem like a reasonable basis. Then if you talk about carriage inwards, carriage outward is for selling related expenses, selling related, right? But if you talk about carriage inwards, this is for purchases. So on what basis will you divide carriage inwards? Carriage inwards should be divided on the basis of the purchases made by individual department. So in the same Nestle example, in the ratio of purchases which different departments made, you can divide the expenditure relating to carriage inwards. Then what if you have some wages or salaries? How do you divide those? If these wages or salaries are for different departments, the work is done for different departments, then you may say, what is the portion of time spent in each of the departments? So something like totally out of 8 hours in a day, 2 hours each in the 4 departments will be spent. So, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours, 2 hours. So then maybe the wages and salaries you can divide in the ratio of 1:1:1:1. So basically you can divide wages and salaries on the basis of time spent by this worker in each of the departments. Then things like depreciation of assets, insurance, repairs and maintenance of assets. On what basis will you divide? You will divide on the basis of the asset value in each of the departments, or you may divide it on the basis of the time spent by the asset in each of the departments. Then you may also have some administrative expenses, something like a security guard or some finance manager and so on. Then you may have some administrative expenses like what? Managing director's cost. Then you may have finance department's charges or other administrative assistants charges or some security guards charges and so on. So like this, all these are administrative costs. Administrative costs, you may choose to divide them on an equal basis because that could be one way to understand it. Or if there is any other basis given in the problem, you can divide it on that basis, but otherwise you can divide it on equal basis among different departments. Sometimes these administrative costs can also be divided on the time basis, like the way we saw for salaries. Even these you can probably divide on time basis. Then if you have things like labor welfare expenses, you can divide on the basis of number of labor working in each of the departments. That can be a basis for dividing something like labor welfare expenses. You may have something like PF, ESI. You will divide those on the basis of wage cost or salary cost of individual departments. But friends, all these points what I spoke about till now, these are only examples. This is not any final list. So you have to use your common sense, and based on what is given in the question, you have to understand what sounds like the most ideal way to divide these expenses among those different departments.